Most nations have national boundaries, a national language, a central government. These are part of national development. To trace the story of the rise of nations, let's take France as an example. We'll go back to feudal times, about 1100, before France was a nation. In northern France, on a feudal domain, we'll meet a man of this century. This man is a serf. Confined to the domain, he knows little about other French provinces. The castle, the home of his feudal lord, affords some protection during the many little wars of this time. Clustered beneath its walls are the homes of the craftsmen who make the products that the self-sufficient community needs. For in these days, there are few traders or travelers. The occasional trader is one of the few contacts the serf has with the world beyond this domain. The laws of the domain are made and enforced by the feudal lord of the castle. For the serf, this is the source of the only government he knows. True, there is a king, but to the common people, he has little more importance than this statue on their church. During these feudal times, the French king is just another feudal lord, ruling only this kingdom. Around it are many feudal states, independent of his rule. A large part of France is even ruled by the King of England. When William of Normandy conquered England, he made all his vassals receive their lands from him as king. And so England had an early start toward becoming a nation. By 1300, her people were united under a strong monarchy. Between 1300 and 1400, feudal Europe changed greatly. Towns grew, and townsmen increased in number. Townsmen were a new middle class between nobles and serfs. They might be artisans or merchants. Here is a wealthy merchant of the early 14th century. In his home are many expensive furnishings and decorations. How did this wealthy middle class emerge? What part did it play in the rise of nations? For one thing, the merchant's wealth was related to an increase in travel during this period. With the growing popularity of pilgrimages to holy places, travel within Europe was stimulated. With the Crusades, travel to lands beyond Europe was stimulated. Travel took Europeans to far places, Africa, the Near East, even the Orient. Here they met new peoples, new ideas, and new products. To buy these desired products, Europeans needed wealth. Where did the wealth come from? The land of Europe, especially under more efficient methods of farming, was one source. In 14th century Europe, money was rapidly becoming important. Trade helped towns to grow. Some towns grew for another reason: education. In university towns, there was a revival of learning, including an increasing emphasis on the study of law. Under the protection of a just code of laws, administered by a strong government, all classes of society might find greater security. For this security, townsmen in particular were looking more and more to their king. To the townsmen, especially the merchants, the monarch wisely granted privileges to encourage trade. From law students, the king recruited royal magistrates or bailies to administer his laws. To help him rule efficiently, the king had a council of noblemen for advice. He also founded a supreme court, the Parlement, where trained judges handled legal problems. The Parlement was in Paris, center of the monarchy's growing power. Gradually, the monarchy had added more lands to the royal domain, so that now, about 1300, the King of France ruled over this French kingdom, and the monarchy continued to grow, so that by 1500, most of France had come under royal control. Now, we'll meet a soldier of France. He is a captain in the Royal Army. He and other soldiers are paid to enforce the law and defend the nation. They are part of a national army that grew during the previous century. During the same period, the power of the feudal lords had been declining. New weapons contributed to this decline. Meanwhile, other lands of Europe had been emerging into national states. In Spain, there had been a gradual uniting of the several feudal kingdoms. By the early 1500s, England, too, had grown into a powerful national state under the strong rule of Tudor monarchs, including Henry VIII and his famous daughter VIII. By and large, France followed a pattern of development that was in many ways followed by England, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, and other nations of Western Europe. The pattern we have seen in France is an illustration of the rise of nations, the rise of kings who, with money, could buy the services of wars. These enforced national laws and maintained the national defense. National defense was sometimes associated with a national spirit and national heroes. Powerful monarchs. Today, people of Europe live in countries that emerged along patterns similar to that we have seen in France, a pattern we sometimes call the rise of this man.